Good morning and happy Friday to everyone. It's Ben Buckner and Dan Bossy with Ag Resource in Chicago. It is June 13th. Dan, how are you this morning?
I'm very well, Ben. It's a steamy morning and, looking forward to the weekend. Lots going on. So why don't you give us a little tidbit of what you think here?
Yeah, so yesterday is kind of a million little things, and the June WASDE report has come and gone. I'd say the USDA kind of kicked the can down the road, which is not surprising. We've got still a lot of uncertainty. Didn't answer any questions, not many changes to the balance sheets. This morning, though, we've got crude oil up $6, expanding conflict in the Mideast. We've got Israel and Iran at each other's throats, which is one of the risks we kind of talked about for a long time that was in the background, and now it seems to be coming to reality, at least to some extent. We've also got, model-based forecast starting to peak into July. That is imminent, and so we still have yet to determine what weather will be exactly as corn starts to pollinate. So that is also kind of a risk and gives us some unknowable uncertainty. So what do you have this morning to break down kind of the details of what we're looking at market-wise?
Well, let's kind of get into it, Ben. And, let's first sweep away the USDA report from yesterday. It really didn't give us a lot of insight. So I just want to pass the buck on it as USDA kind of passed the buck on a lot of data. I would imagine that U.S. wheat yields, that at least early results are still going to be moving higher. I really don't understand the increase in, let's call it feed and industrial usage of wheat within Russia, but they did lower stocks accordingly. So there's some things out there that were somewhat important, but I think in a broad sense, we're still looking at weather and geopolitics in terms of what's driving markets. Here today, we've got Netanyahu finally making his move on Iran. I think this picture says it all. The Hamas-Gaza war is spreading. And the questions is one for energy. And if energy are rising, of course, that gets back to affecting what we call the biofuel crops of corn and soybean oil. So we'll look at those markets, how they react today, but crude oil has been up anywhere between $4 and $6. And really, as we go forward, I would imagine, I'm not sure how long this operation will take from Israel, but I think the big question on the weekend is what the retaliatory methods would be from Iran, and that'll be very important to watch. Iran has promised over time that it will close down the the Strait of Hormuz. Now, that's a big deal if that happens for energy markets. Roughly 20 million barrels a day go through the Strait of Hormuz, and so it would be a big deal. So whether or not Iran can get that done will be closely watched, but if that did happen, I think we'd have energy prices or spot crude oil prices maybe with a 90 in front of it instead of this morning 70. So this would provide $20 or $25 of upside risk. But I just want to highlight that everybody needs to be watching this area over the weekend and trying to understand what it means longer term. As you think about crude oil prices, this is a spot weekly crude oil chart. Notice that we did kind of bump up to the upside, getting above a lot of weekly highs over the past several months. And so, the next stop would be somewhere, in the area of, let's say at $77 to $80. And then we'd be looking closer to 93 to 97. So again, in these times of conflict, of war, these are the kind of targets that we think about at Ag Resource. And $100 crude maybe, but it seems far stretched. I'm not sure it would last a long period of time, but a lot of it would depend upon logistical snarls, particularly in that Strait of Hormuz and what really happens. So this would be positive, if you will, of commodities and really introduce inflation in that discussion going forward. So something to pay a lot of attention to. Watch energy values. I think it's going to be very highly important as we think about the weeks ahead. Getting back a little, maybe something more agricultural, we look at this week's rainfall. This would be from the period from the 6th to the 13th. And you can see here that, a lot of the southern U.S., along with important areas of northern Iowa, southern Minnesota, and Wisconsin, got covered up with a fair amount of rain this week. Now, some of this was detrimental to the wheat crops, maybe in Arkansas or potentially southern Oklahoma, stretching into Ohio. But again, a lot of moisture, soil moisture across this part of the country is very good. As you look forward and you think about what's to come, this is the 7-day forecast from the European weather model this morning in terms of locational rainfall. And you can see that the plains will be spared. But as we get past Kansas, Oklahoma, and their eastern boundaries, the moisture starts to pick up pretty appreciably. So, I don't see a problem with rainfall heading into the end of June. This pattern's still staying very active. There's going to be lots of chances, almost daily chances of some rain across the portion of the central U.S. We will have some bouts where maybe there's some areas that get too much, like maybe Kentucky or Ohio, or even portions this morning of southern Indiana. But overall, at this time of the year with crops well planted, I think rainfall leans positive for yield, positive for conditions, and we are looking for corn and soybeans to increase 1 to 2% in the good to excellent category on Monday. Lastly, I do want to make a point here with what's all going on heading into the weekend. There's still uncertainty about the summer weather pattern. Yesterday, we had high pressure ridging across central U.S. Today, that ridging is mostly gone. But I would imagine this 230 or 430 to 435 level December corn will hold with the war and energy prices rising, and of course the uncertainty of weather at least through the much of next week. Now, next week we do have a holiday on Thursday. It's Juneteenth Day, so I'm going to make a statement that we hold at least into that time frame. If we come back and it doesn't look like the Strait of Hormuz is going to be closed or summer weather pattern has a problem, then I think the markets have more difficulty. But I do believe the trade needs to look or gander into that period of early July to really have a sense if there'll be any extreme heat for pollination, Ben, before we could do that next leg down in the corn market. So 430, 434, strong support, at least for now. We'll see how this holds. I put a blue line there, but I think that level will hold till we know more about weather in a week or so. So look for choppiness, I believe, in the markets. RVO may come out today. That discussion is ongoing in terms of 26 to 28. We'll see if EPA finally announces that this afternoon. But that, along with weather and the expanding war in the Mideast, I think gives us a lot of choppiness, as no one wants to exert a bearish or bullish stance overly right now, Ben.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think the market, the entirety, we all have to contend with the temperature pattern in the Midwest during pollination. So, of course, a huge deal. The number of kernels on the year, of course, that's kind of out of our control. So, yeah, and every 6 hours we look at, updated model forecasts and what they say and what does the ridge look like, how intense is it. So that's going to be the game. Along with geopolitics, we've got to put on our geopolitical hats once again. So it's going to be important to be engaged in these markets. Short-term risk management is going to be kind of challenging. I think we will see choppiness, maybe some wider ranges. And ahead of a weekend, that's always the biggest issue, is markets are not open Saturdays and Sundays. And so how do we come back Sunday night during the summer months is always critical. So I've got nothing else. I would do all the best in the markets today. And it's going to be an exciting couple of weeks, and stay tuned to what we've got.
Happy Father's Day, everyone. We'll be back soon on Monday. Be well, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.